Well, my name is Dan Valamis. I'm with Valamis Software Solutions, and I have top of the hour, so I think we'd like to start. We're going to be talking today about new features in Oracle Analytics Cloud version 17.4.5, and let's go ahead and begin. Just so you know a little bit about Valamis Software Solutions, who's talking. We're founded over 25 years ago. We specialize in Oracle-based enterprise business intelligence and analytics, analytic warehousing, data mining, predictive analytics, something we call kind of the analytic options to the Oracle database. We're also specialists in the area of data visualization. You'll see a little bit of that today in kind of a sneak preview that I'm putting into today's webinar. We also are authors of the book on data visualization for Oracle Business Intelligence and on Essbase and Oracle OLAP and university partner. We're going to be going over a lot of things today about various features in Oracle BI and Oracle Analytics Cloud 4, specifically version 17.4.5. But this is in a series of webcasts that we've been doing really for 6 years now on various features. Every time there's a major new release, we try and do a webcast highlighting those major new features. You can see a list of them here, and you can go back and replay a lot of these at valamis.com/OBI webinars. And you'll see a bunch of those. Those are all live links that we can do stuff, including today's. This is a repeat from the one we did in December on OAC 4 new features. I want to highlight one thing. I won't have time today to go over all the new things in version 4 of data visualization. I'll be focusing especially on the cloud specific features on Oracle Analytics Cloud. That release came out in December of 2017. It's really pushing to the cloud a lot of the features that were initially previewed in October of 2017. And this webcast here goes over some of those details of the things in the interface that were first on the PC and now on the cloud. So check out that webcast if you want to see more details on some of those new features. We'll go over them as we go along. You can also ask questions while we're going on in the webinar. People's lines on audio are on listen only, just so we don't get a lot of background noise with so many people dialing in. But you can put things into the question box. We have people online that will try to answer the questions as best as we can, and I may have a chance to glance at those as we go through the webinar on this. But chat those and ask those questions. This is what our webinars page looks like, so you can go in there and look at prior versions. With that, let's jump into the content, especially for today. We're going to be going over the new features in version 17.4.5, also known as OAK v4. And I'm going to just run through these here. I have slides on specific ones, but I want to show the ones that you see highlighted in green are ones that I plan to demo, time allowing. But you can see all those that are listed here are kind of the new features from this version of OAC 4, Oracle Analytics Cloud 4. Then when you see something with an asterisk, those are features that we covered especially in the prior webcast as part of the DVD4 What's New webcast. And then what we demo here in the OAK 4 webcast is in green. So there's a bunch of new things. I have slides on each one of these. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the meat of the matter. So part and parcel, one of the big things is a new home page and a refresh of the user interface. You'll find, and we'll show this, that's why this is highlighted in green, but there's a new menu at the very outside on the left side of the screen that allows you to get at things much more easily, the ability to create new things easily. All of this was designed to make it easier for users that especially were first-time users. On the home page are these, let's call them big buttons, that allow you to find stuff that help people get going. And as well, one of the features of this is the ability for this What's New page, this What's New area within the home page, is trying to show you what others in your organization, there's a lot of features here, especially on the groupware aspects of this, of showing you what others are doing and what you're doing so you can find those things that you've been using the most recently in that what's new area. So all of that is new with the new homepage. There's also in DV4, and I'm emphasizing DV as in data visualization for part of OAK4, also when it's on the desktop called Data Visualization Desktop 4. So I'll try and be precise in my terminology. But on DV4, one of the new things is some visualization controls. There's now a properties pane on the left side. We highlighted this in the previous webcast, where we showed now when you look at measures, for instance, number discount here, you can see properties of that, and it's on the left side instead of in the right-click things. As well, when you're looking at visualizations, when you click on a visualization, that same properties area shows properties of that visualization, and that's where you make changes to things like showing dual axis graphs, which measure goes on which axis, that type of thing is in this properties pane. It's a more intuitive way of trying to get at some of those things when you're trying to control this, but it is different for us that are used to prior versions of data visualization. There's also now the ability, this is great, I use this all the time, this cross-canvas copy and paste, and the ability to duplicate visualizations as well as duplicate entire canvases. This is something where Oracle is kind of rounding out the capabilities in the product and making it easier for us that are developing canvases and developing visualizations for this. The ability to duplicate a visualization, copy a visualization, and paste it someplace else. We also have the ability now to pin various filter criteria for an entire canvas, for a canvas, or pin it for the entire project. There's lots more filtering capabilities and finer control over that than we had previously. We have now the data actions, the ability to allow us to navigate to another canvas page. This kind of gives us that ability to control one canvas from another canvas, and even indeed pass on selections. And you can even launch URLs for even applications that are outside of the Oracle system and pass on parameters. Those types of things you can specify, and you can create right-click actions, if you will, on your various on your visualizations in your canvas. So there's a lot easier way to navigate in the system, kind of helping us use the system as well for doing entire dashboards. One of the things that I showed in the new features in Data Visualization 3 was the ability to easily create columns of various grains for a given date. So here under ship date, you can see you can look at ship date at various levels of a time hierarchy and easily create a month column. Now in DV4, we have the ability to basically all of those columns at all those grains are available all the time. You don't have to create them individually. You simply specify when you're using that column at what level do you want to look at that data, and you don't have to create it explicitly. It does it on the fly, because ultimately the software is generating a query against a SQL database or some kind of row set that you're going against. So why can't it just do this on the fly instead of having to pre-create it? It's kind of nice the way you can do this show by and just specify at what level do you want to look at order date, for instance, and override, have a default one and ones you want to look at, as well as change the format in which you want to show the data. We also have the ability to display various measures as a value, which is the normal way, of course, to look at it, as well as a % of. This is especially appropriate for tabular display when you want to just see the % of sales here on this column, and you don't want to have to create them. You could always create a measure to do this, but now it's directly available to display things as a % of. We also, the data types have been simplified for a single number data type instead of having to spend time casting the data as different data types, that type of thing. All this is for kind of ease of use. There's also the ability to auto bin some of the metrics when you use these as columns. So before, when you were trying to create a scatter chart, you'd have to create a categorical scatter chart or something like that. Now it's very simple to create this bar graph. If you want sales going across, which is kind of a weird thing sometimes to do with a graph, if you drag a numeric measure, a measure across to the x-axis, it'll simply group the data into, in this case, it looks like 10 different or 15 different groups that you're looking at, and then you can click on Edit Groups and specify at what level do you want to look at. This allows you to see the distribution of your data very, very easily by just graphing it, if you will, and look at where are all of my sales or the number of customers by sales buckets, if you will. So that's a nice way of looking at that directly in the end user interface without having to create anything, that type of thing. There's also the ability to rename data sets. For those of us that were working with multiple data sets, we can now rename them more easily, edit them, that type of thing for the data sets. Think of this as storage inside the OAC server. It's not maybe a full database. If you're talking about indexing the data, all that type of stuff, you really need a full database. These data sets are, really think of them as uploaded spreadsheets, if you will. But now we can rename those data sets. We can also now go in and put in a visualization. Before, all of the data had to be related to each other. Now we can drag multiple sets of data that, according to the system, are not related at all. So you hear furniture, see furniture, technology, office supplies, and as well as average athletes. And there are no joins between these data. You can specify joins if you want, but if you don't want them joined, the software does not stop you from putting those all on a canvas. Maybe you have a good reason for putting unrelated data all on the screen at once. We also have simplified project permissions and some data limit truncation warnings. So now we can, this is getting towards the groupware aspects, and I'll cover this a lot more in the demo, but the ability to specify who can look at specific sets of data as well as who can look at specific projects. As well, it will automatically sample the data if you're trying to look at too much data and that just doesn't fit in the screen. So there's a warning for doing that. You can even turn off that warning, by the way, if you wanted to. There's also a new narrate experience. The narration area has been really overhauled a bit to make it easier to work with. And now you have down on the bottom, you have the ability when you're creating these stories of data, you can specify for each story page what canvases you want to show, and you simply drag them down to add them to the story, to add, for instance, the overview canvas to your story, and it allows you to separate the concept of creating canvases, the places where you visualize the data, from the story, which is what is it that you want to especially share in, for instance, a briefing on things. That starts to get the to make the story capability start to look more like a narration or like a briefing book for those that are familiar with some of the older terms that were used in Oracle BI. But it is redesigned, redeveloped, rethought to be a modern experience with this. You can also annotate those, and we have the ability to change the aspect ratio or the native resolution of each of the canvases. That makes it easier to put these things together. There's a new sharing capability with the ability to have social media. For instance, when you go and share things, you can share it through a Slack channel, a Twitter feed, you can tweet, that type of thing, which is a nice down payment towards making it so that we can share these types of visualizations once we put them together. I know I wanted to do this in the previous release with some statistics that I simply used data visualization desktop to do some analysis on some stuff literally from my daughter's school that I wanted to share with people. Now I could tweet that easily with this Twitter capability. You do need to use the Oracle Storage Cloud Service in order to store those images so that they have a place to live, if you will, as this is happening for quick access. The data flow area has some very significant enhancements. There's many different new data steps, merge rows and filter, for instance. I'll show some of them in here. There's also some enhanced filtering, the ability to union things together, and we'll show some of this. There's also a new Create Essbase Cube step. I'll just bring this up during the demo, but then you can take, if you have a set of data that you want to be able to showcase to people, and you want to be able to then, for perhaps speed of access, or somebody wants to do some more manipulation of that data, you have this great visualization. You can create an Essbase cube from that. The software figures out what the dimensions are. It's pretty slick, actually, trying to make its best guess of what a reasonable Essbase cube would look like, and then you can go and tweak it using, of course, the Essbase modeler to change some of your hierarchies, change your outline, that type of thing. There's a cumulative value step, the ability to do kind of a running total or year-to-date in here. By the way, this moving sum would be kind of like a year-to-date to restart on every, the slide should say in here, restart for each year. That's really more what you'd probably do in this, is aggregate sales, sort by, then by month, and restart every year, something like that, to do this cumulative value on here. There's also a create group step. I'll show an example of this in the demo. Won't fully go into it. The previous webcast showed the full example of creating these. But there's a wizard for creating groups. Think of these like the custom members capability in the classic OBI interface. And for those that go way back to Oracle Sales Analyzer, this would be like custom aggregates. And this is the ability for a user to create their own custom groupings of various dimension members or various attributes for doing that. There's also a new binning step. This is kind of a little like what you saw, what I showed before in being able to create your own type of histogram type of stuff, but this is more flexible. It's in the data flows area, and it's something where you're manipulating the data and creating new data sets. I'll show an example of this to do the binning. The binning can be equal width or equal height, or you can manually just drag these things around to create whatever bins you want of this. It's a nice little way of manipulating the data. And as we get into doing this type of analysis, the line is blurring between what a user would do in manipulating the data versus IT doing in manipulating the data. Now we have a lot of the power of the analysis of this and data transformation, let's call it, of the data tools that are available via the DV interface that perhaps end users want to do, all part of an empowerment of the end user department. As well, now we have the ability to forecast, do simple time series forecasts, or, for instance, even sentiment analysis is now built into the user interface for end users to be able to do their own type of stuff. Of course, you know, and you see down here even more complex things having to do with machine learning is all available. You can shut these capabilities off, but at least we have the ability now for end users to get at really the power of an analytics environment. New is the ability to have a sequence. As I think as Oracle saw people creating these data flows, they realized you may need to run multiple data flows in a sequence. So that's now called a data sequence, and you can create those and execute them. It's really just a chain of various data flows that will then manipulate the data to create basically new data sets is what you're doing in this, and changing the data in some way. You can schedule those as well, to schedule a data flow to run at a specific time, and it will run, you know, behind the scenes, even on a repeated schedule, daily, weekly, monthly, that type of thing. And then you can monitor those schedules from the console screen. Those are kicked off as batch jobs. Just like any of these releases, each release seems to add more data sources. You'll see there's a Oracle Big Data Cloud and a Data Warehouse Cloud. Actually, I think that got renamed after they must have put the software to bed, because I heard it announced at Oracle Open World as the Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. That's what this is, in case you're just confused by the nomenclature on this. And so we actually are working with that with the Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud. Makes a great, by the way, makes a great addition to your OAC environment for doing the analysis and storing the data in the Autonomous Data Warehouse Cloud, a database instance that, if you will, runs by itself. There are some other, this is a growing list of data sources and each release they seem to come out with others. There are some, just so I don't leave it out, there are some Essbase specific new features. Features that are new in the server, in the web UI, and in SmartView and in the Cube Designer, including kind of in that Cube Designer a thin client modeler for working with Essbase. I won't go through all of these in this webcast. I did want to include it in the slide so you could see at least perhaps your favorite feature is in here. For instance, using Excel execution from the jobs interface, something that will help us out for this in our implementations. And the big ticket item probably in the OAC 17.4.5 release is the introduction of some machine learning capabilities. We've had some of the analytics in there in previous releases, but now it comes much more powerful. And probably the easiest to understand and what I wanted to show today is the explain capability of a given attribute. This sifts through the data and gives you a starting point so that you can add some visualizations that explain, for instance, ship mode in this example, and try and explain some of that way and create the beginnings of a project or the beginnings of a canvas that shows something about, in this case, ship mode, that at least the software finds interesting. And I'm purposefully putting the software as kind of the subject of the sentence because it's trying to make the job easier for you. You're going to find it's going to find spurious correlations, that type of thing, that should not be shown. It has no way of knowing. But it's a really nice down payment and is a good way of introducing machine learning into the BI stack. As well, you can train and apply some of the out-of-the-box models. You can even add your own custom R scripts and Python scripts into here. This is where you train multi-classification models, numeric prediction models, that type of thing. Now, you're going to need to know a little bit about what these things are or read up on them, but it provides this really to the end users for just about the first time in providing this type of power within a BI interface. As I said, you can even upload your own custom scripts for this as well. This is in the data visualization desktop edition, but run those scripts. And then you would then model these scenarios, add those scenarios to a given project that then you can capitalize on that when you are running your visualizations and create them. You can also embed DV content. So perhaps you have, I'll try and show this, where you can have a script that automatically it generates the embed codes that you need in order to drop this into any application. This is, opening up the platform to be able to make it so you can call DV from your own favorite type of management platform. Maybe you have another portal that is doing stuff and you need to call something in the DV environment without loading everything from DV. That is enabled as well, and this shows you, instead of having to dig out the doc, you actually just go in and say, give me the embed code, and I'll tell you, and you can plug it into whatever HTML you have. We also have the ability to replicate some of the data. Perhaps you have some data that you're bringing in from a source, and you want to then store it locally on your Oak instance. This especially makes sense if you're pulling data from perhaps a big data environment where you know it's going to take a little while to pull that data and you instead want to replicate it. There's a built-in data replication area as well. We also have now the Map Viewer Administration Console is in OAC. This is kind of Oracle's continuation of putting some of the stuff that you had to go to for the in the Classic Edition. Now you have available in the DV stuff to be able to, for instance, get at map views. We'll try and show that. You can also import and export your thin client modeler stuff and export those out for moving them, for instance, between servers. We use these as we work in various development environments. All right, so that's kind of an overview of the features. I'm going to cherry pick some of those to show live. We do this in all of our demos, so we like to show them live so you see it's not just hocus pocus on these and see what's going on. So let me transition to that. So I have a browser open. You can see where I am. This is what the home page looks like live. And so in here, we have this home area. This is where the projects are. You have this getting started area. This launches a YouTube video. So that watch overview is for your first time users that actually start seeing, oh, this is how I interact with this environment. And you can go and then customize this page. Perhaps you want to, I like to put the projects first. It comes up here as the what's new is first, and you can move these things around to what you want, and you can get rid of that show getting started banner. Once I'm done, I don't need it anymore, but I give demos, so I like to include it. But you can change all that around. There's also on the side here, you'll see me use it. This is the navigator screen. I'll call this a hamburger menu. Looks like a little hamburger. I don't know. Maybe that's true. But then you've got home projects. You'll go back and forth with these types of things, and then you click on that to get rid of it. But one of the things I wanted to show especially was the improvement in the development experience on how you pass things back and forth. So I'm going to show actually doing something in Data Visualization Desktop. I've got that loaded on my PC. Make a change and move it up to OAC. So now I've got Data Visualization Desktop. It's got the same interface, okay, for this. And I'm going to make a change and move it up to the cloud so I can share it with other people. Now, rather than going through all of this stuff, I'm going to just make a very simple change. I'm going to just drag this visualization so that it is on the first column of data. And in the prior webcast, I went through what I'm doing here in this, bundling together Xerox and Hewlett-Packard and Fellows and Avery and that type of stuff. But let's just say I went ahead and made that change. I want to now save it. By the way, I'll emphasize that you want to save these things before you upload them. I found that it works better when you then share this up once you've saved it. So I then send it to, you can save this to a file, share it via file, email off to people, print it, or I can send it up to the cloud. So in this case, I've got this already pre-filled in, but this URL you'd have to type, where is it going up to what server? You can see I'm on Oak 4 Demo 3, and you have to fill in the username and password, and I'm going to go ahead and include the connection credentials and publish this up to the cloud. Now, the reason you might want to do this type of thing is send this up to a server. You may have done these things on DVD, so you could work on it offline, not worry about whether the server's spun up, do you have credentials, all that type of stuff. It may be even spreadsheets that you're analyzing and bringing that. So now you want to save it, share it with somebody else, and you can then save it up to the cloud. Because it's already there, it says, hey, do you sure you want to overwrite something that's already up there? As you might guess, I've actually tried this out a couple times before showing it to you all. But then I save this up to the cloud, and it's now writing that up to my Oak server from my PC so that others can then see the work that I've done. I moved this over to the side before I actually showed how I created this new panel, and now this is up there. If I now Alt-Tab back to the browser interface and I look at what we have in here, I'm going to go ahead and show the projects area, and you see up in my folders was where it puts stuff. Here's that sample project dev v4. That's what I uploaded. And if I then just use this hamburger menu on the side to inspect this project, you can see the information when it was uploaded, that type of thing. And then there would also normally be a permissions tab on here. Now, because it's in my folders, you don't have a permissions tab because you have, of course, full authority to this. But I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the manipulation we can do this. I want to go ahead and move this to the shared folders where I share stuff with other people. So I double-click on shared folders, and I'm going to move this from my folders into a shared area. And so now within shared folders, we have a bunch of folders. I created a Valamis folder, and I'm going to just paste this visualization and move it to there, and now it's going to move from my folders into the shared folders. And if I go into shared folders, this is all the stuff that's in there. It's organized. This is, if you will, a catalog manager of stuff in the catalog for with the DV interface. Now within here, now if I inspect the sample project dev v4, I can control who has access to this visualization, to this project that I uploaded in here. And you can see cloud user, that's who I'm signed in as. He can edit, but then I can go in and add more users to this and give them permission to this. So I click on that add button. There's a bunch of users. You can share it with roles, a lot of what you would expect. But here's me, and this is my own personal user ID, and I'm going to drop this down and give myself edit permissions on this, because now I'm just using the user cloud.user. Now Dan Valamis can edit that sample project dev v4, and because it's in the shared folders area, I can control all that kind of with more fine grain than we could before. We also have that same project permissions when it comes to some of the data. So let me go back and look at some of the data. Look at these data sets. Within these data sets, I know that that data is using the sample order lines area within this, and we can take a look at the permissions and modify that within sample order lines. If we look at the permissions, some of this is automatic, by the way. When you share a project, it will share the data, the permissions of the data it comes from. Just I wanted to show you this because as I copied these things around in different instances, I found that there were times that I needed to grant that other user their permissions to see the data that the project then went at. So if I click on the permissions tab within a data set, you can see who has what permissions for this user. Right now, Dan has read access. I can give him write access to that data set, and so forth. So that is how you can control all your different data sets, who has permissions on that, data flows, and all that type of stuff. So let me come in and show also in the overview I talked about capabilities in the data flow. I do want to show something. Let me just show you real quick. Let me just tab back to DVD and give you a visual on this. When you're looking at product sales, we have this by major manufacturer, and if we were to look at this by product name, you would find that there are way too many product names. I went through this in the prior webcast, and we needed to group them by the manufacturer of that, the major manufacturer of that. So I simply picked all of the product names that begin with Belkin and assigned them to Belkin, all the ones that begin with Avery, and did this as an end user, as a created a data flow to do that. And that way you can see all of the Hewlett-Packard products grouped together. You can see I didn't get all the way through. That's why we have so many others. But let me come back and then show what that looks like within the interface and how I created that. So within these data flows, one of them is where I binned these things together, and I'll show what that looks like, and as well show you what the interface looks like for creating these data flows. When you're looking at these on the web, you can create all these different, you can see we have a bunch of these in here where we've created various data flows, and some of these came from Oracle. Looks like I timed out somehow. So let me log in again and sign into here. Not sure why that happened, maybe because I switched servers when beginning here. Then we'll try and show the data flow examples on here. Try once more. So I click on data flows, and within that I have DV4 bin group demo. So I'm going to take a look at that data flow, and you can see I can run, open, and schedule. So let me go ahead and open that up, and I'll look at the data flow for the DV4 bin group demo. And in here you can see that it has various steps that we've done. These are all the different data flow steps going down on here. And if we look at, and this is the sample of the data that we're looking at, if we look at the bin step, we'll see how we're binning the data. This is looking at the number of bins. This is looking at 10 different bins of equal width. I can drop this down, change it, all sorts of stuff. That's what I showed in the previous demo of this. We can also filter the data. This becomes important if you have too much data to be able to effectively manipulate it with the DV tool. Perhaps you're working with terabytes of data and you only want some of it filtered. You can filter it before you even get into the interface. We also have the ability to group the data, and this is what I especially wanted to be able to show you. Within that, we can group it by the major manufacturer. You can see you can create various groups. Click on that plus. You can give it a name of, for instance, major manufacturers, and specify whether you want to include other values in here, and it'll automatically create a bin for you of others. But I created this with Fellows, Sanford, 3M, Hewlett-Packard, Avery, and so forth, to show you an example of that. And all of that is controllable. And then ultimately, by the way, what it's doing is it's creating new columns in here for each of these. And then if I get to the save step, I can save this stuff away. Here is the new columns that it's created. This is the sales decile. That's what the bin step was doing. And then the grouping step is creating this new column called major manufacturers. And when you run a data flow, it's really basically creating these columns and populating them with the appropriate data. Anyway, you can store that data then as dataset storage, a built-in data store within the Oak server, or your own custom connection. Perhaps you want to store it on an Oracle database or something like that. You can do that as well. You just drop down and specify what connection you want for this. But right now it'll group the data. If I click on this plus, we will then, if we can create an Essbase cube, perhaps not only do I want to save this in a data store, but I want to create an Essbase cube on the fly for that. So come over here and create my Essbase cube. I can specify an application, a cube name, and it will create that Essbase cube automatically for you. I won't go through that step right now in the interest of time. But then once I'm done with these steps, I can then execute that data flow, and it will then run through and execute the entire data flow for this. Now this is a simple one that doesn't run with a lot of data. So it runs within a second or so. But that's what it's like to execute that. I can then save them away and have multiple of these. I can even schedule them. Let me show you that. If I come back here and click on this hamburger menu within here, I can schedule that to run at a specific time. So perhaps I want to run this at a specific time, a 12:38. Let's see if I get there fast enough to actually see this run. But I'll schedule it to run at 12:38 p.m. That's not going to work well. And go ahead and let that run, update it, and then it will update this job to run at 12:38 p.m. So then we come out of here, and then we can monitor those jobs. If we come down here and console in jobs, you can see all the jobs that we're running and when they are scheduled to run, that type of thing within this interface. So within console jobs, it'll come up, and we click on the refresh button to refresh the most recent jobs, and then you can see that when those last ran. As well as there's a place where you can see when they're running, that type of thing. So here it looks like this thing ran, it's complete. I can look at active jobs. Of course, there's nothing to show in here, and then reschedule them, and it can run on a daily basis and so forth. We also have the ability within this to run sequences. So sequences are simply, I'll create a sequence here real quick for you. So this will allow us to create a sequence of data flows so that if I want to manipulate the data in various data flows, I can then create a sequence, drag over, for instance, various things that I want to run. Maybe I want to run this, then this, and then let's get rid of that one, and run these, remove that, and then just execute that sequence, and it'll run them behind the scenes. Anyway, it does the same thing as running a a data flow in the case of being a single data flow sequence. All right, I also wanted to show the within the console area, there were some changes. By the way, one thing I'll point out to you, you end up going back to this previous tab when you're using the software. This is where you end up doing things, and the hamburger menu in terms of being able to do various things is often on the previous tab. The software wants to load new tabs, so you'll find that when you're looking for something, sometimes it's in the previous tab. So when you go back to the console, I'm going to look at, within there we have maps. I told you I'd show you what that looks like. So here is a list of map backgrounds and map layers. And if we go to the map layers, here's China City, China Province. I can go in and inspect that. All that type of stuff is available in here. If I add a custom layer, I can load things from a GeoJSON file, something like that, and load that up here. All of that is now exposed in this interface. As well, in the OBI Classic maps, this is for the DV maps, for the classic maps. We also have the ability to change some of the stuff that you normally would do with the map viewer interface. So here's some background maps. If I click on World Map, and this is all stuff that you can use in your visualizations. And here's an example of something in, for instance, San Francisco area. And this specifies for each level of zoom that we're going. We started at the finest zoom level. So I zoomed out a little bit to show you these are the red boundaries that will be shown. And I can fine control of which layers are shown for which levels of zoom. So it gives you fine control over that, and now we have that map viewer type interface within the DV interface. I wanted to also show the BI Publisher capabilities within that. So let me come back and show within there what we're looking at within the home. You'll find the BI Publisher stuff we still have within the home screen. If you go to the classic home, this is where you get to it, by the way. In the new home, if you right-click the right hamburger menu, there's a link to Open Classic Home. It has its own URL if you wanted to open it that way. It's /analytics instead of /DV. But that opens the classic home. This is still here with all your catalog, your dashboards, the ability to create things with answers. All of that is still here in this interface. It's just available in the old classic home as opposed to the DV interface, which is really what I'm focusing on today. So within here, I can open up, for instance, just to show you what the BI Publisher capabilities are. If I go within shared folders and in here in published reporting, open up just this balance letter report. Let's just grab that one. And this is just a BI Publisher report that now is available on the OAC platform. Indeed, if you go to events.oracle.com, I think that there's a webcast specifically on the BI Publisher capabilities within this interface that's coming up. So focusing on especially BI Publisher for those of you who are especially interested in that. I also mentioned that you have the embed capability with any of this. So let me show you an example of that. Come back to our sample project Dev v4 and show you how you can look at things within and embed that in your own applications. So we'll load up the my sample project. And by the way, I created Dev because I like to keep the sample project that Oracle delivers pristine so that I can look at all their examples without and demonstrate them at times without having to mess them up and go back to the original image on this. Then what I do is I save them away or copy individual visualizations and individual canvases. And this is where the ability to copy visualizations between projects, copy individual canvases, duplicate visualizations, all that type of stuff becomes very handy. The ability to be able to grab those. And one of the things I wanted to show as well was our new visualization that we've created within Valamis. So as this loads, you can see here's my sample project Dev V4. This is with our product sales over on the side. And now if I come up here and specify from the in here in this debug area that looks kind of scary to go to, within debug, a window will pop up, and this is where I can grab the embed codes so that I can see all this stuff. If I want that, the one that I've been using especially is Canvas Overview Dev. And here is the code that I would use. Highlight it, copy it, and you can paste it in whatever app, project you want. Now, one of the things I wanted to do while we're in here, I kind of snuck this into the demo. I replaced what was in the canvas here with a new visualization that we've created at Valamis Software Solutions. We call this a force-directed graph. And so I went ahead and created that, and this will be out on the Analytics Store soon, probably a week or two to give you a sense of that. It's going through some of the final QA on this. But this is a force-directed and allows you to, for instance, have in this hierarchy, we have 3 different product categories. Within that, we have subcategories and such. And when you click on one of these nodes, it expands and shows the children of these. So I'm going to click on Office Supplies. And within that, you can see, and then these also can collapse. You can then, when you hover over labels, for instance, I can see that its product subcategory labels and its sales is 14,000. And then I can expand labels, and all of the other values move around. This is what makes it force-directed. I can also take these nodes and drag them out manually, and they're sticky, and I can unstick them as well. And they retain their properties of where they drag and such. So it's kind of a fun little thing for showing some of the labels, and for hierarchical data is a nice way to display it for that. Look for that in the sample store soon. One of the other things I wanted to show, I promised I would show the machine learning capabilities. So let me come back to the home page on here and just show you an example of that. For this one, I have a data set that's already been prepared. I have a spreadsheet, and I'll show you what I do. Here's my spreadsheet, and I've got something called employee attrition. And one of the things Oracle has done with this release is try to make it easy for people to include their own data. Rather than having to go find this thing, I simply drag and drop this thing onto the home page. And let me get this out of the way now. I've dragged it out for you. And it knows that I want to upload a file. And it's uploading employee attrition, that's XLSX. It's just a normal spreadsheet file. One of the things, by the way, as a tip, when you create these files that you want to be able to, the spreadsheets that you want to do analysis on, you want to be able to name them in a way or construct them such that going across the page, there is a column for every data set. Put your labels in row 1, and then your data starts in row 2. And that makes it easier for you to work with the data rather than having to have it look at the data. Now, it would show the data in here. It's uploaded, and it automatically uploads it. And then all you do to create the source from employee attrition.xlsx is then click on this Visualize button. And then it will visualize that data in that spreadsheet that's been uploaded. This is what it looks like in terms of the data, ID, name, age, attrition. And this attrition column is whether that person has left the company or not. So this is a bunch of different employees, what their attributes of those employees, what their daily rate was, what their department is, all sorts of stuff like that. And then you can, and then, by the way, there's other capabilities I don't have time to show, but that have been in DV for a long time. But then if that data looks like what you want, it's saying, hey, do you want to replace it? Yes, I want to replace it. So that's going to upload that and then visualize the data for that. So that uploads the data, and we're looking at then the employee attrition data. Then when you click on Visualize, it then uploads the data and then starts to visualize the data with the attrition data up on the Oracle Analytics Cloud. So this is then uploading the data as we are speaking and trying to then look at the visualization. I'm just waiting for the visualizations to pop up of that attrition data. Now you can see the various columns that are in here: attrition, business travel, so forth, as we look at that. And if I then right-click on attrition, for instance, I can ask the software to explain attrition, and that will sift through the data and find a story in the data, if you will, by running an R script that they've preloaded into there to explain attrition on there. So it can tell me some basic facts about attrition. It then runs some R scripts on the fly. You can also run Python scripts, and then it's trying to do a basic facts about that spreadsheet data that we've done. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to the interface at this point. Looks like that we lost the connection to the server, or something happened where it got bogged down. But it puts up some basic facts about attrition. Sorry, audio quality on this as well. So there's some basic facts about attrition. And then if you then look at some of this stuff, you can click check marks on. This is showing that there are 16% of the people have left the company in that data set. If I want to know more about that, I click on that green check mark, and then I can look at various key drivers of attrition, and I can look at various segments that might explain. For instance, here I look at it by job role, and I am specifying, all right, that's by healthcare. I want to look at the overtime information. And then as well, it's run a model behind the scenes, and it's doing basic anomaly detection. It's come up with a model. And in here, if we look at the research scientist area, we can see that it looks like for the bar graph that the number of people that have left, the number of people in the data set is 14 we would expect to have left. However, the number that actually left is 14. We would have expected 21.89 would have left, given the other pattern that we've seen in the data. Well, that sounds very interesting. I don't know why that is, but I want to explore that further. So I click on that green check mark on that, and here is, by the way, the English sentence behind that that's computer generated in this case, that's being done by the machine learning algorithm. If I then click on add selected, it will then add those selections to that visualization. That's why that canvas comes up blank when you look at that. And so rather than starting with a blank canvas, what we'll do is ask that right-click explain on attrition is what we did, just to refresh your memory. I said explain attrition, and this computer found the story in the data, and then we clicked which ones we wanted to see and add that to that canvas. And so we see this donut graph, a horizontal bar chart, a couple charts, and this prediction model, and we can go manipulate that data and explore this further. With that, that's what I especially wanted to be able to show in the demonstration. I can now save this project away, share it with other people, all that type of stuff that you saw before. We can also create webcasts that try and catch people up on what they're looking at and what they're in terms of some of the other features of Oracle Analytics Cloud. Today we focused especially on the new capabilities. Let me then flip back to the PowerPoint and wrap up here with what we wanted to do, and then I have a poll question that I wanted to fire if we have time. In the Oracle Analytics library, you can see the URL here, but I'll have it on a slide, are sample plugins and sample sets of data that you can use for your own exploration. So take a look at that. Our plugin will be in that plugins area soon. And so take a look for that as that comes out. I also want to take a moment to plug a upcoming conference called the Analytics and Data Summit taking place in March. I'm the conference director on this. It takes place at Oracle headquarters. So go to analyticsanddatasummit.org and take a look. If you're interested in this type of content, this is the type of stuff that this conference covers. So we're doing that along with the Spatial and Graph SIG, and we'll be featuring a lot of this material and about somewhere around 100 sessions. Don't hold me to that exact number, but that gives you a sense. 3-day conference covering that type of material. If you want to know more about some of this and you want to know about some resources, have questions on that, here's some URLs with various features. You'll find this slide up on our website at valamis.com when you click on presentations, and you can see a lot of these features listed on here. By the way, this YouTube channel, you can see the one in purple, is where you can see videos of a lot of these capabilities. This is where the analytics library is. And if you like this type of stuff and seeing these webinars, you can get this webinars capability. This is where I got a lot of the data on what's new in the release is in this specific URL, so I could focus on what's new in this 17.4.5 release of the software. With that, we'll see if we have a chance for some questions. Let me ask some of the other people on the line that are helping me out from Valamis. Hey, is there anything that we especially want to cover? Wow, looking at the question list, I haven't had a chance to look at this. There's lots of questions in here. Anything, folks, that we especially should highlight in a couple minutes that we have here? And while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll so that people can see, what is the factor that's impeding you moving to Oak today? And we'll try and gather some statistics on that. But anything that that people think especially we should highlight?
Dan, there are some questions regarding the integration with OBIEE and what we might call the classic interface of dashboards and answers with the new data visualization interface. And I think it's fair to say that Oracle is committed to supporting OBIEE for a very long time, but it's also clear that their future direction is really around the new interface and, kind of the modern approach, if you will.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for highlighting that. There's too many questions for me to try and summarize here real quick, so I appreciate you looking at them. Yeah, that's indeed exactly true. I focused today on the new interface, the new control panels, because simply that's where Oracle has stuff that's new. The classic home page is there, all those features are there, but most of the new capabilities are going to be in this DV interface from everything I've seen. So thanks for highlighting that. What else as I look through? Hopefully you're able to answer questions. I can't answer questions and talk at the same time. So
your presentation answered some of the questions as well. So
did it? Okay.
Yeah, we're just anticipating things.
Yeah. With that, we got just a couple minutes left. I'll give people a chance to ask that burning question. I'll just scroll down to the bottom. And it's interesting. I see an asker also asking about BI Publisher. Yeah, BI Publisher is part of the OAC product line, so you get it when you have OAC Enterprise Edition. There are multiple flavors of Oracle Analytics Cloud, for instance. Take a look at that. There's a standard and an enterprise, standard and a data lake and an enterprise edition of OAC. So take a look at that as you do. If you want BI Publisher, it's part of enterprise. With that, let me go ahead and thank everybody for being part of the webcast. We will have this up on our website if you have people that missed today and would like to be able to look at the replay. We do record these and make them available, so take a look, and would love to share with you. If you want to know more about machine learning, let us know. I'll fire one more poll question on here in case you're interested in this stuff, and then see if people want to especially look at the if you want to be able to look at the machine learning capabilities, send us a question or chat, and we'll follow up with you, and we're potentially going to do a webcast on specifically the machine learning capabilities of this. With that, let me thank you all for attending, and we'll look for you next time.